This is the Ponderous Brick Thinker with a castle update. And the update is, I'm going to do some sketches to figure out what the style of this castle is going to be. So I believe this episode is going to be more of a color sketch episode, except for the following. I was thinking about the Tower of Understanding, considering that there are 5 levels of 6 bricks high. And I was thinking, science breaks things into components, into categories, into little boxes. And that might be a theme I might explore with this tower, especially when I can say, maybe it doesn't have to be 6. Maybe I can make them a little bit larger so that I have 4 levels. And there are several cultures that define nature as earth, water, air, and fire. And there can be a distinct look to each level as it goes through the elements. And that can be something interesting, especially where the other ones might be a little bit more integrated and more free-flowing. This one is more categorized, and that might be something interesting to do. Now, having said that, there are 5 levels, which, well, I can change that. This is still a sketch, and I can make them 8 high each, and that'll give me 32. It will be 2 bricks higher than before. And then I can also see if this is even a better height to put the levels. There. So it's a bit more comfortable for our taller members of the team. But I think I'll go with that. And it also, I don't mind that it's a different level height than the other ones. And again, this is probably not going to be consistent. Maybe this is going to be taller and can vary, especially depending on the theme of the level or where that purpose of the tower is wanting. And so I'll leave it there and think about it some more. The other thing I forgot to do in the previous episode was the gatehouse. It's the entrance to the castle. And even though there may not be a gate, I haven't thought that far. I should say, more or less, if I were going to do one, how would it look? And how big would it be? So just placing the 6 columns, or 6 brick columns, more or less here, because there it's easily you don't really notice it in the whole scheme of things. So how about making it a little taller and see if that's the way to do it. And the columns here represent the corners of the gatehouse approximately, and there you can see a bit better. I think it's just gonna have to be, let's see, making it bigger maybe, or a larger footprint. Let's see if that will be the key. It's hard to say. I'll have to think about it. But now that it's here, I can actually think about it rather than forget about it and move on. But now that this is going to be part of the same architecture, so it is important to consider at this moment. So this is the main color of the castle. It's a color I have not used specifically. I did create a bluish black sketch that incorporated this color, and I believe the earlier sketches, it was the one where I did not pay attention to the color but to the form. I might have used these as some of the pieces of this color, as I did with any of the other ones, nothing special. But now that I'm more concentrated on the color choice, I can say, okay, well, that's interesting because this is bright green, really pops out. This is really saturated. But the thing is, the dark turquoise is I really like this color, but it kind of gets lost. It's too similar of a color to be, dominant or prominent. So it's going to have to get some help just to kind of, be able to be used. And it'll probably be sparingly, but just putting colors next to it to see what are the possibilities. Is there something really garish? That really pops. That will get your attention. And yellow. Let's see, red. I have several red pieces. The solid red really is dominant. This is a dominant color, the magenta, but it's not as abrupt as the red, at least to my eyes. I think this is dark pink. It's almost the same category as the azure right here. And then here's dark blue. That could be a nice detail. It stands out against that blue. And green. Well, there are still places where I'm going to put green because there are pathways and other things to put around, especially right here. I do believe I'm going to use green, especially the green plates, considering that I have done this for the rocks, that it almost makes sense to have walls of green and they can have things growing on the walls. So I'm going to see how well, and it looks pretty good with just the standard Lego green, in addition to the bright green, to be against this color. So what I want to do right now is try to come up with a sketch in terms of trying to use some of these pieces in a pleasing way, incorporating the theme of the castle. Sounds kind of complicated because it does sound kind of weird, but basically I want to do, okay, I can do fenestration, see what kind of fenestration does this castle have. So I can do fenestrations and determine what is the look of the castle. And so I can do fenestrations and determine what is an opening of the castle going to look like, especially since I have my glue and I have different color pieces that I would like to use and try to experiment, especially since, again, several of these are brand new to me, and try and figure out how can they all go together. And it is tempting to say and make it look pleasing or beautiful, but if, according to theory, if you build to a purpose, there is beauty in it. And it might be unexpected, it might not be traditional, but when there is purpose, there is beauty. And so that's part of why I'm planning in advance to see if I can capture something beautiful. And maybe unexpected. And also, I really have no idea how these colors look together, other than just mixing them up in a big pile. But how do they look like when they're built with a purpose? The other thing is, maybe, it's hard to say because there is form in which what are the common pieces that are going to be used throughout the towers. But again, not this color in this shape. It doesn't have to be in every level, in every tower, because this might serve a particular purpose in one location that might not fit in another. Especially since with the science tower, or the Tower of Understanding, this might not have a place. I might go with color theme at each level, as well as a style. That's going to be different for each level. And so I might go over here and say there might be a special purpose. And so I might go over here and say that this is a distinct look compared to each other of the level. So what I create here doesn't necessarily have to go into the Tower of Fun. But what I want to do right now is kind of just see for myself in person, what do these bricks look like together? The remainder of this episode is still going to be a sketch, but I really want to build something. And one of the things I have not really planned for are the walls. If this castle was a regular outline, say for example a square, I would expect a orderly, regular repetition of wall elements. But I have gone out of my way to make this really not a square. And so that means the wall is going to be a variable between one location to another one. And that means a little bit more experimentation of what the wall looks like in a certain location. Especially since there are walls that might be short and can be seen over. And then there are walls that maybe are meant to be on top of. And I'm going to borrow from the ancient wonders of the world, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, so that some walls might have plants on top of them. And that is going to be vary from location to location. It's still going to be in sketch mode because I don't know what the tower is going to look like. And it's going to have to be kind of what looks good and what is going on behind the wall. But I do want to see, using the elements that I have, to see what kind of walls I can do. And I'm probably going to just start here in the corners of certain locations, especially since while I am consistent with the use of the brown bricks and the rocks, I do want to see how it looks like when there's a tight space. Maybe it's just going to be a simple wall, but if I have a bit more room, maybe that's where they climb up. So that's going to be part of the planning phase for the wall, and it's probably going to be continuous. It's going to be touch and go while I'm doing the buildings. Maybe I discover something interesting while I'm doing the towers that, I really should do that on the walls. So it is going to be semi-permanent, that I am going to try and leave it there, but if a better idea comes along, I'm going to use that idea. And let's get started. I chose this corner out of almost pure randomness. Since each corner is going to be different, it is just a shot in the dark to see how this one goes. However, I can say that I intend to make this a type of tower that the Lego people can be on top of, which means it's going to be thick and it's going to need this room to be able to build that hall. And over here, as a minor note, I put these arches here, or the bows, to kind of indicate that's the gatehouse, and I kind of like how that looks, especially since I reserved these for use as the trees, and that gets my mind going. Maybe the gatehouse is a grove of trees that either welcome or prevent people from coming. We'll see how that goes, but that's the idea. I temporarily put these here to kind of give me, it can be like that, or maybe that high. We'll see, but that's the beginning of the idea of what the gatehouse can be. And you might notice that I have my brown bricks ready to be used for the wall, and that is in part because maybe I can go up a little bit to suggest that the previous people, or maybe a previous team, built this with the brown bricks up to a certain point and then left it in ruins. So maybe it's just a little bit of a nod in that direction. It's probably not going to be higher than 3 layers. I think 3 layers, maybe 4 layers will be the highest, especially since with 4 layers that will be more or less the height of a minifig. So I'm probably not going to go that high, but just to have a little bit more variable so that it is not a clean line between the brown and the new wall color, and it will, make it more interesting in that respect, and a little bit of storytelling. So I'm just going to add a little bit more and see how that goes. As for the wall, I still don't have a clear direction, so it's going to be a lot of sketching. And this kind of sketching is different from what I did in the past, especially with the sketching of the fenestrations, because in that respect, I thought with the original idea of a fenestration, and then I built outward, and that was the sketch. This is different, where I have a surrounding scene, and that has to fit to that surrounding scene. So the wall has to fit to that location, basically, because this wall is going to look different from another wall. Even though it's going to be more or less the same idea, the form is going to be different. Maybe over here, it is going to be a simple wall where they can just look over, or maybe over here is where the wall is going to be like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So it's going to be variable. And I think I like that approach, in which the wall is going to be different depending on where it is in the castle. However, in order for it not to look a complete mess, there has to be something cohesive about it, and that's what this part is going to be. I'm going to focus on this corner, and then I'm going to jump to another corner, and maybe that will give me some ideas as to what to do with the wall. This is the type of wall I want to avoid. In some situations, it might be okay. I might even do it if I had buckets and buckets of this color, but I don't. So this, as I have done with the browns, a lot of colors need to share in the making of the wall. And so just to clarify, and if I was ambiguous before, I'm not going in this direction where it's just a clean color. In fact, I don't think I'm going for anything clean in this design. So this is to show no, but now it's time to say what it can be. For this sketch, it is the alternating of colors, follows the same plane as the brown bricks, and there we go. That's the what I would say the extent of this possibility. It's going to be the same on the interior, just following the same pattern. So in case it's hard to tell on video, this is the dark blue and dark purple with blue, and then the medium azure right there. There is a band right here. I'm not sure if that was first noticed when you first saw this sketch, but to me it's not really standing out. It is almost the same saturation as the brown color, so it's easy to miss. What you first see of the wall is the medium azure because it's a lighter color. And now it's time for the next thought, which is to not follow this plane and try to break away from it. In other words, I'm going to have to go inward because here's my limit. So I can sculpt it with slopes, maybe even arches, and let's see how that one goes. Here's a possibility. It still doesn't strike me as being the right fit for this castle. And what I like about it is that it has varying depths, though I cannot go too far out because I do have rocks, and it's going to be like that through the entire castle, so that's probably not going to be ideal. It has to start where the brown is and go backward in order to have some depth. But this is a start in the direction I think I want to take, in which there are several layers of wall so that it's a little bit more interesting than just flat. How about this idea? It is a bit rough. It could use some more work, but it does do what I needed to do. It uses other colors to have a variety, and I don't have to rely on a single color to do the entire castle other than the medium azure. And I use the quarter circle pieces with 2x2 drum pieces in here, and then horizontal. One of the reasons why I'm going this direction is that I can use the tiles to make something unique here and tiles across here. It doesn't have to be white. It was just the handiest color, and it could be alternating between different colors for that side. But even though you see a color, it's going to be tiled, so it could be a multitude right there. And that's another reason why I like this approach. I am going to work on it some more, but alas, this is going to be the last sketch for this episode. ran out of time. But this is the direction I'm looking for. It's a bit odd, but when you look at the entire thing, I think it will fit somehow. So, this has been the Ponderous Brick Thinker. Thank you for stopping by. If you liked the episode, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see how this project progresses, go to subscribe and sign up for a notification so you can see and find out when I'm going to do my next castle update. And see you next time.